Hey, all, Bryden, Homes by the Foot and Remax Central Real Estate. Typically, during the month, I do a market update on the previous month, but like past years, December is always quiet, so there's not much to report. I'm going to take a look at what I think might be happening for the rest of 2023. Now, I'm not an economist. I'm not a trained financial expert. This is simply my gut feeling, my opinions based upon what I have seen in this city my entire life growing up. So, on with the show. One question I've been getting a lot of is what sparked the frenzy the spring of 2022? Now, those of you who have been watching these videos for a few years now realize that I've been sort of touting we were heading that direction even since 2020, that momentum was starting to build and things were starting to happen. And that was a perfect storm almost from January 1st at the beginning of last year, because it was happening countrywide. There was a lot of pent-up demand. Interest rates were historically low, and we were coming out of the pandemic. Why is that a big deal? People weren't spending money during the pandemic. It was collecting in savings accounts, in checkings account, in various forms of investment. And everybody decided at that point, now's the time. So everybody came out of the woodwork, and it was a frenzy. It was no fun for everybody. There was multiple offer situations. There was no conditions on many of them. And it was too hot. What we're looking at now, in a nutshell, I think the phrase will be slow and steady. We're going to see a slow and steady improvement for everything. We're talking economic conditions, prosperity, everything that is going on with the province now is looking extremely good. Now, I did a whole pile of research over the last couple of weeks. I hit Economic Development Calgary, the city, the Chamber, Government of Alberta, most of the major banks, various financial analysts and think tanks, Calgary Real Estate Board, Remax, and a few major competitors. And all of them are basically in agreement. I know the headlines are doom and gloom, recession, global recession, price drops of 20% in that. But if you drive down and look at Calgary and Alberta, you'll find there's almost a little asterisk. Except Calgary, except Alberta. We're expected we grew at a pace GDP-wise of 5% last year, outstripping a lot of the major economies. Going to be a more reasonable 3% this year, but that outstrips basically the US and most of the other G7. So we're going to be doing well. Why is that? Well, in essence, we've got what everybody wants. We are still energy rich, and that is counting all types of energy. And whether it's oil, gas, we've got the technology sector for green tech, which is going to be huge for us. As a matter of fact, a couple of CEOs after our prime minister announced that, we just need to transition, they're actually pumped about this transition. And one even suggested that the amount of money that is going to be pouring into the green energy sector in an effort to get to to net zero in the next 10 to 30 years, the expenditure in that area is going to be equivalent to all of the investment at building up the oil sands in the first place. And one even suggested we might see a boom equivalent to what we saw in the 80s and 90s. So exciting times. The pent-up demand is still there. Why? Net migration. We had 20,000 people come from Ontario, 6,000 from BC. We were net positive in just about every province. And immigration. For immigration, we get about 1 of every 8 newcomers to the country. And with Trudeau having said there's going to be 500,000 every year, there is a lot of people coming into this city. And they're going to need places to live. They're going to be adding to the taxpayer base and contributing in so many other ways. And with all of what I've said too, one thing that's going to be going for us is economic diversification. We're no longer solely dependent on oil and gas. Matter of fact, it's becoming a smaller and smaller part of our gross domestic product, of the income generated in this province, because we have got sectors like the transport, tech services, and green energy, as I mentioned. which are extremely high-paying jobs. The entertainment. Anybody check out Last of Us that just opened up? That is the most expensive domestic-made TV production in history for Canada, and it's being filmed in Calgary and area, and it's a great show too. There we are going to see stunning job growth, but we're also going to see some labor shortages in some of the other markets, like we have seen that restaurants and hospitality. There is lots of jobs to be had there. Wages, which have been flatlined for the last few years, we're looking at, according to a lot of the think tanks, wage increases of 3% per annum for the next few years. That's a lot higher than it was. Now, it's not back to the heady days of the early 2000s when we were seeing dramatic price increases when the oil sands were really starting to kick in. But it's, again, slow and steady. And one thing that's impacting things, which is starting to show trends of easing, is supply chain. That's been a problem globally for numerous reasons, but that is starting to ease. It hasn't left for those with kids in the cough and cold section. The shelves are still barren, but a lot of other stuff is easing in nature, such as wood skyrocketed over the last couple of years. It's expected to come down, as with steel, concrete, asphalt, all sorts of commodities are starting to come down. So we're going to see an easing of that, which is good, because what slowed things down last year was inflation, and the government had to hike up interest rates, and they did it hard and fast, and it had the desired effect. It slowed things right down. Now we're expecting another price hike of up to 0.25% in the next week, but that could be it for a while, because there are indications that the rate of inflation is dropping. Now, for those of you who are hanging out saying that they're going to start easing interest rates, don't think that's going to happen. Matter of fact, most agree that it won't be until next year at the earliest, being 2024, when interest rates might start to ease a little bit. But right now, I really believe that we're at or near the top of the interest rate hike cycle. So what does all this mean? How does this impact real estate, which is why we're here? We are going to be largely in seller's territory, at least for the first bunch of months, before it starts easing into a more balanced market. People who are waiting for prices to decline are going to be sorely disappointed. Just about every major group that I did research on was talking a minimum 1.5% price increase all the way up to 12%. Now that will be dependent on the type of and style of home you have, whether it's multifamily and apartment. Matter of fact, if you're in the townhome and multifamily, you're going to be doing better than the detached segment, especially the higher priced homes. They're going to see some price declines. But overall, it's going to be offset by the entry-level market. And with the interest rates, people have had to change their thoughts on where they're going to start. So getting that starter detached home might no longer be viable. So townhomes or semi-detached might be the way they're going. And that's why we're seeing those areas start to increase. And apartments are finally starting to go. And they're going in a pretty good clip right now. So we'll see sales, the number of sales, slowly but steadily increase, but a lot of that has to do with the number of listings. And right now, there is not very much out there, but I expect by the time February comes along, more and more listings are going to come on. When that does, we're going to see the market pick up, because right now it is still quiet. If you live on the outskirts of Calgary, Airdrie, Okotoks, High River, Cochrane, you're going to be doing better than the city of Calgary itself, both in the number of sales and price increases. However, the amount of listings in the market is still really low in those areas as well. So in a nutshell, if you've got a home to sell, this is a fantastic time. And if you want to get into the market, again, get yourself approved. How often have you heard me say that over the last year and a half? And let's get out there and start hunting. No, there isn't as much on the market right now, but there will be more to come. And get in there before the price increases start taking off again. That's it in a nutshell. I am really pumped about where Alberta is heading. It's looking rosy for quite a few years looking ahead, and I see nothing but blue skies. So if you want to sell, now's the time. If you want to buy, get qualified and give me a shout. And we'll talk to you guys soon.